Before we start this topic on H2 math inequalities, let's get through some basics of O levels first, okay? So number one is, for example, if you have 3x less than 1, when I am going to divide by negative 3, or even if you multiply, as long as you multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality sign will change. Okay, so the concept is right now, okay, last time in O levels we can just take this for granted, but the concept is like this: minus 3x less than 1. By right I cannot change the sign. I'm moving this over to this side, so I will have 0 1 plus 3x. Then I move the 1 to the left side, and then you will realize that, yeah, x is greater than negative 1/3, which is the same as this when you flip the sign if you divide or multiply by a negative sign. So the first concept, remember, when you divide or multiply by a negative sign, then you have to flip the sign. Okay, now the second thing is, if you're not confident whether something is positive or not, cannot cross multiply, something like this: x over x minus 2 is greater than 1. It feels like you can cross multiply here. No, you cannot cross multiply, because do you know that is this positive? We don't know whether this is positive or not. So you cannot cross multiply if you do not know whether a denominator is positive. Okay? But if you know that the denominator is positive, for example, x over x minus 2 square. This guy, a square number is always positive. So can you cross multiply over here? Yes, you can, because x minus 2 square is positive. Even something like x over x squared plus 2 greater than 1. Is this positive? Yes, because x squared is positive, plus 2 is always positive. So you can cross multiply in this case. So do not cross multiply if you do not know whether the denominator is positive or not. Okay, you can only cross multiply when the denominator is positive. So that is the first basics you have to know in this chapter. Okay, so next, there are a few things. Okay, sometimes you need to own self know whether this quadratic function is always positive or not. There are two ways. Number one is either you complete the square. I prefer you to use the second method, which is to show that the discriminant is less than 0, as well as the coefficient of the x squared is positive. For example, this equation, x squared plus 3x plus 4. Okay, so when you see this, and then you know that this cannot be factorized, when you put into your calculator, scientific calculator, you cannot find the roots. Then we have to check, okay, the discriminant for this is b squared minus 4, a is 1, c is 4, and then this will be 9 minus 16, and this guy will always be lesser than 0. So I can say that x squared plus 3x plus 4 is always positive, which means this guy will always be greater than 0. Okay, so this is one concept you have to know for now. Okay, another one will be knowing how to factorize the cubic equations, which I will talk about it in a later example. Okay, these two are your concept of quadratic inequality in A math. That means when you have x squared minus something greater than 0, you factorize it using algebraic identity number 3. Okay, and then concept of in quadratic inequality I will touch on in example 2.0. Okay, so if I have 3x squared minus 8x minus 8, the question did not specify exact form. So this is actually your O levels knowledge. When I go and factorize this, I will have 3x here, 3 minus, and then this x, this is plus 1. Okay, greater equals to 0. Once I factorize already, I know that the roots are 3 and negative 1/3. So during your O level times, when it's greater equals to 0, you will shade here and shade here, right? Okay, but now in A levels, right? Okay, you have to know this part, okay, you see is above the axis, are considered positive. This part above the axis as well, consider positive. This part below the axis, considered negative. Okay, in A levels, we are going to put it in this way. Okay, negative 1/3 and then 3. Okay, you don't have to sketch it out, because not most of the time you will get quadratic. Okay, you will get cubic and even more. Okay, all you need to do is to sub in a comfortable value. Sub in like x equals to 4, which is on the right side of 3. Can you see 4 is over here? Just sub a value that's close to the root. Okay, I sub it into here. See whether I know is it positive or negative or not. So when I look at this 3x plus 1 as well as x minus 3, When I sub in x equals to 4, I know this guy is positive. I know this guy is positive. Positive times positive, this part will be positive. Okay, so as long as there are roots here, okay, there are roots here, it will always be alternate, plus, minus, and then plus. Okay, because as long as there's a root, the graph will pass from positive to negative. And as long as there's another root here, the graph will pass from negative to positive. So you can always write plus, minus, plus, as long as you can find the roots down there. Now, this is not always true. There's a few cases where you cannot use for this, okay? Especially when when you see x is equals to 0, right? This will actually change a lot of things. So when x is equals to 0, just be careful. Okay, so this is the O levels way of presenting, but now in A levels we have to put it in this way. Is so because you are going to get more than 2 roots, you're going to get sometimes 3 roots, 4 roots, or 5 roots. Okay, now looking back at the question wants greater equals to 0. Where are the greater equals to 0? This part and this part. So the answer is x is less than can be equals to negative 1/3. Okay, now in A levels we present it in this way. This is a set. When you see or means union, and or x greater equals to negative 4. Okay, it could be this way, and sometimes they want you to present it in a more set form. You have to understand the notation. When I'm smaller or equals to negative 1/3 means I'm going from 1/3, negative 1/3 to negative infinity. Okay, so negative infinity is always curved bracket. This I can be equals to, so I use this bracket, union x greater equals to greater equals to 4. I will do from 4 to infinity. Okay, if you don't understand this part first, if you haven't gone through functions, it's totally fine. Later on, you will know about this way of presentation. Okay, so next is, if the question asks you to present in exact form, means you got to find the roots using the quadratic formula. Again, the first thing is when you have negative x squared, right? Make sure it becomes a positive x squared by multiplying by negative 1. It's better to do it this way. Okay, multiply by negative 1. I will have x squared minus 4x plus 1 less than 0. Okay, so to find the roots, x equals to minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so this will become 4 plus minus square root of 16 minus 4, that will be 12 over 2. And this is where your certs have to be strong. You have to know that 12 is 4 times 3, so square root of 4 is 2, 12 is 2 root 3, and then these are your roots, which is 2 plus minus root 3. Okay, now we can put it in this new way that we learned on top. This is 2 minus root 3, this is 2 plus root 3.